Why isn't Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys involved in some sort of drama? I think Jerry Jones kind of gets off on it. And Jerry Jones also has a history of having very bad contract negotiations. We're back with Football Forecast Offseason Edition, Episode 7. He's Kaynen Buckshot. I'm Anthony Balester. We have a lot to get into, Kaynen, this week. A lot of news that broke in the last few days, and we're definitely going to get into it. There was the Micah Parsons mess that's going on with the Dallas Cowboys. We had some trades, and we also had some players getting some contract extensions. But definitely make sure to be following us on all social medias at TFB Forecast ETB. We post every single week, so you love football, you're definitely going to want to follow the show. Definitely make sure to be following our YouTube channel at youtube.com/ETB Network for all of your other shows and other sports content. We're getting very, very close to the 1,000 subscriber mark, so any extra subscribers will help. So definitely make sure to hit that button. If you like football, if you like baseball, you like MMA, you're definitely going to like our YouTube channel. Also, make sure to check out our new ETB Substack at etbnetwork.substack.com. We're introducing new shows every single week. I do Alley-Oop Analytics, which is a basketball show. We got baseball shows. We got MMA shows. So definitely make sure to check it out for all your other sports content. And definitely be making sure that you are listening to the forecast however you like to listen to your podcast, whether you listen to it on the go or whether you listen to it inside on your television. And definitely be making sure to check out Playback because the football forecast is presented by Playback, and we got plenty more to talk about that later on in the show. But let me ask you, Kaynen, how are you doing this week?
Yeah, I'm good. Same old. How about you, Anthony?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Definitely getting excited. We're getting ever so closer to the draft. Normally we've been, previewing the NFL positions, and we were planning on previewing some more positions this week. We got 3 more left, but so much breaking news happened, Kaynen, that, we're going to have to talk about that next week. And we got to get into it with the Micah Parsons contract negotiations. Now, Kaynen, this has turned into a complete mess. Micah Parsons is asking for a lot of money. There's back and forth with Jerry Jones and him. His agent, Micah Parsons' agent, being disrespected. But before I break this down, Kaynen, what were your thoughts on Micah Parsons' contract negotiations?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of drama behind this. Apparently, Jerry Jones met with Parsons without his agent, David Mulugeta. And David Mulugeta, he's one of the top agents responsible for landing like the top contracts in the league, and he represents everyone. So Jones claimed he wasn't really concerned with dealing with Parsons' agent and that he didn't even know his name, which I thought was funny, being he's such a reputable guy. But it was good to see what Parsons did. He went on to defend his agent, and he made it clear like he trusts him moving forward. And I thought that was a good move by Parsons because as much as you want to be the team guy and not get the agent involved, it's important for like your career and your future. You got to have your agent there. And like you said, it's just a mess. Like Jerry Jones was being so suspicious. It's kind of odd to act that way when you're talking about Micah Parsons, a guy who's like the face of your franchise. So it's just a weird move by Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly, Kaynen. And it's a weird move by Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, to go out and disrespect Micah Parsons' agent. But, this honestly isn't so surprising. I mean, why isn't Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys involved in some sort of drama? I think Jerry Jones kind of gets off on it. And Jerry Jones also has a history of having very bad contract negotiations. And what happens with, Jerry Jones and the Cowboys is they'll kind of lowball their players. They won't pay them early. And then what happens is they wait till the last minute to where they have no choice. And then they end up caving in and kind of overpaying for a player when you probably could have had him for a couple $1 million cheaper had you paid him a few years sooner. We saw that with Dak Prescott twice now. So Jerry Jones has a history of doing this, and that's why he also had to pay CeeDee Lamb the contract he had. Now, Micah Parsons is one of their most valuable players, and given his age and his talent, he's one of the most valuable players in the NFL. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's only at the age of 25, 26 years old, and since Micah Parsons has entered the National Football League, he's been pretty much a top 3 to top 5 pass rusher every single year he's played. So he definitely deserves to get paid. Now, he is asking for a quite substantial amount of money, Kaynen. He's asking for north of $200 million. You know, and what's happening, Kaynen, is it's not about becoming the highest paid player at your position anymore when you're not a quarterback. It's, are you going to be the highest non-quarterback paid in the NFL? You know, that's why we saw guys like Max Crosby get paid, guys like Myles Garrett. And then Jamar Chase was like, nah, not only do I want more than Jamar Jefferson, I want more than Myles Garrett as well. And that's why Jamar Chase was asking for $40 million. Well, now that Micah Parsons is next up for his contract, he wants to get paid that. And he's looking at a 5-year deal for $200 million, which would pay him over the $40 million a year mark and make him the highest paid non-quarterback. I know that's a quite substantial amount of money, and I'm not sure if I'd want to give him a 5-year deal. Given his injury history, I would prefer the 4-year deal. But, you know, he's got all the leverage. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys have to pay him. I mean, especially after you gave Dak Prescott over $60 million and after you gave CeeDee Lamb over $35 million, you have to pay Micah Parsons as well. But what are your thoughts, Kaynen? I mean, do you think Micah Parsons, given his talent but also his injury history, is he worth a 5-year deal over $200 million to make him the highest paid non-quarterback at over $40 million per year?
Yeah, I think if you're paying guys like Max Crosby and Myles Garrett that type of money, I think you definitely have to consider giving Mike Parsons what he wants, because if you're the Cowboys, it's pretty much all you got going for you right now is Mike Parsons. You don't really have much appeal other than that. So, I mean, I would pay him. I think he's a tremendous football player, a sack leader. I'd take him. What about you, Anthony? Would you pay him that money?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's unfortunate that you have to, you know, kind of overpay him, but he's worth it. I mean, you have no choice. You have no alternative. You're never going to be able to draft a player like him unless if you're picking at the top of the draft and you got a top 3 pick, you could draft it Abdul Carter. But, you know, that's unlikely to be in that position for Dallas. So, you know, you have to get Micah Parsons. You're not going to be able to replace him. And like you said, Ken, with Max Crosby getting his contract, I mean, he has injury issues as well. And I think Micah Parsons is probably just as good, as not better, than Max Crosby. Now, Myles Garrett is probably a little bit better than Micah Parsons, but Micah Parsons is also 4 years younger. So you got to factor that in as well. So the Cowboys are in a position where they're going to have to pay him. And like Micah Parsons said, he's not going to negotiate this contract without his agent. So not only is Jerry Jones going to probably have to pay him this money, he's going to have to bite his tongue and be able to negotiate with his agent. And that was definitely disrespectful. And I agree, he definitely didn't have to do that. But we had some trades, Kaynen, and it's actually the same team. The Cowboys went out and made a trade. The Cowboys went out and got Joe Milton. They traded it for him from the New England Patriots. Now, this is a guy, Kaynen, who has all the talent in the world. And, you know, I've been following Joe Milton ever since he was a quarterback at the University of Michigan. And I remember when he came in and he was so big, so strong, and so fast, but he just couldn't get the accuracy, taken care of. And then he went and transferred to Tennessee. It looked like he was going to be the starter there. He struggled again. And then you saw Hendon Hooker come in and really take the offense to the next level. But Joe Milton didn't do what all the other quarterbacks in college like to do. He didn't transfer. He sat there and knew he was in a good system. He learned, got better. And when Hendon Hooker went to the draft, he took over the starting role and showed massive improvements. And then when he started preparing for the NFL draft, you're looking at a guy who, you know, is north of 6'5", 235, 240, running like a 4.6 40. And he's got, you know, I guess supposedly maybe the strongest arm. You know, a lot of people think obviously Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes have the strongest arm, but it may be Joe Milton. There's people I've read that said that they've seen Joe Milton throw a football 90 yards. And I think you can see a guy like Josh Allen or Mahomes who could crank it 80. But Milton may be the first guy in human history on planet Earth to be able to throw over 90 yards. And that's absolutely impressive given his stature and given his mobility. And then you look at the Dallas Cowboys. Trey Lance hasn't been able to be the answer as a backup quarterback. He's been a complete bust. Not only can he not be a starter, he's not even a guy you could really rely on as a backup. And I guess he's playing hardball with his contract negotiations. The Cowboys did lose Cooper Rush to free agency. So this makes a lot of sense. And with Prescott, given his injury history and with his contract, if he gets a couple injuries, you could be looking at maybe in about a couple years at, Joe Milton giving a shot at the starting role. Obviously, right now, Prescott's the starter. But I think they got a tremendous backup. But what are your thoughts about this trade, Kaynen?
Yeah, I like this move a lot. There's been a lot of talk around the future of the Cowboys and what they're gonna do, especially at the QB position. We saw Cooper Rush. He had to step up and man the quarterback position for Dak when he got injured. Like you said, he's with the Ravens now. I think Joe Milton could fill that role, especially, Dak being injury prone. If he goes down again, I believe he could kind of replace Cooper Rush and lead the team to a couple wins like we saw him do. Because he does have all the talent in the world, and a couple of snaps that we got to see where he did play for the Patriots. He has a lot of natural talent and I think a very high ceiling. This guy's just an athlete, plain and simple. Like you said, he's built like a linebacker. He runs the ball like tailback. And that guy did a backflip in full pads. That's just like unbelievable. Got a great arm. And just like you said, Anthony, he's got to work on the placement. But I believe you're looking at the next Cowboys quarterback down the line in a couple of years.
Wow, so you really think this guy is going to be the future of Dallas over Prescott? You think, in a couple of years that Prescott, is just not going to live up to that contract? And, given the fact that he's going to be 31 years old, in a couple of years, you're looking at a guy who's going to be in his mid-30s. Kaynen, is that what you're predicting, that maybe in about 2-3 years from now, that they'll decide to go with the younger guy and the more talented guy in Joe Milton?
Yeah, I can see, with Dak Prescott, whether it gets injured again or just has an off season like we've seen he's had. I see whoever the powers that be making the call and putting Joe Milton in the position to take over and lead the team.
Yeah, I agree, Kaynen. And I think what this could also do too, I think this could benefit, the Cowboys both ways. Either you can end up with your future starting quarterback and franchise guy if Prescott gets hurt again, and if you could develop Joe Milton, or you can have a guy who comes in and Prescott sees this guy every single day in the locker room, in the facilities, and sees how talented he is. Prescott may be pushed. And for the first time, he may think like, hey, maybe my job isn't so secure as I once thought. And maybe it might light a fire under him. And sometimes we've seen quarterbacks in, the history in the past play better when that happens. We've seen Tom Brady play his best when the Patriots had Jimmy Garoppolo and they were talking about him being the future. We also seen Aaron Rodgers play his best when they drafted Jordan Love. So some quarterbacks, it brings the best out of them. Some quarterbacks, it brings the worst out of them. And this will be able to tell what type of guy Dak Prescott truly is. But in other quarterback news, there was a quarterback who got another contract extension, and that was Geno Smith. Geno Smith got $85 million from the Raiders. The Raiders obviously went out and traded for him during this offseason, and then obviously rewarded Geno Smith with the contract extension that he wanted from Seattle, that Seattle wasn't willing to give him. And, it's $85 million including in incentives, and it's over $60 million guaranteed. So it's he's tied to the Raiders now for 3 years, and he's at least tied to him for 2 years, because with the guaranteed money and everything, they're not going to be able to get out of that contract at least for 2 years. So it looks like the Raiders, are hoping that Geno Smith could at least be their quarterback for the next 2 to 3 seasons. And a lot of people thought, he was just going to be a stopgap. Maybe they'll draft a quarterback, and that's not the case at all. Pete Carroll's going to try to compete now and over the next 3 seasons with Geno Smith, and only Geno Smith at the starting quarterback position. But what were your thoughts, Kaynen, on this contract extension?
Yeah, I love that you brought up Pete Carroll. I mean, when you talk about a guy like that, he's got a great football mind and he's won Super Bowls. But unfortunately, he's not going to be around in the league much longer. He's already the oldest coach, so you kind of got to go for broke. And I do think they're banking on Geno Smith to be the next quarterback, and especially paying Max Crosby all that money. I mean, you have to have some production. So I think Geno Smith, he earned this contract. He's had a resurgence over the past couple of years, and it's awesome to see him in top form. We saw what he could do in Seattle. He didn't really have a lot besides TK Metcalf, a couple other guys. He was behind an atrocious offensive line. He was one of the most pressured quarterbacks, I believe. Um, but even still, he was top 5 in target and completion percentage. Um, you know what you're going to get with him. He's not going to burn you over the top every play, but he's very accurate. And it should be awesome to see what he's going to do with the change of scenery, throwing to Myers and Bowers next season.
Yeah, they definitely got a nice, double tight end set. That's definitely going to be crucial. And I know they don't have superior wide receivers, but having Brock Bowers and having Mayer, the other tight end, definitely makes it a lot easier and takes the pressure off of those receivers. Now they do have a top pick in the draft. I think what would be a great direction, Kaynen, and a question that I'm going to ask you. I would love for the Raiders to go out and add a guy like Ashton Genty. If you add a running back to that offense, obviously the defense is usually kind of competitive for the most part for the Raiders. They can use some pieces maybe in the secondary, but you look at their offense, an offense with Brock Bowers, Matthew Mayer, Geno Smith, and Ashton Genty. I think that's an offense that could at least be fun to watch and be competitive. I mean, you'd be looking at least 2 superstars on your offense with him and Brock Bowers, and maybe potentially the best tight end and the best running back in football at some point in their careers. What are your thoughts, Kaynen, if Geno Smith and the Raiders added Genty to that offense?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be awesome. I think, that's one of the pieces besides wide receiver. I think they need running back the most. And on a lot of the mock drafts, I have seen Genty going to the Raiders. So I think we might be able to see that. And that would be awesome to see. We saw what running backs doing with the Raiders. I mean, we've seen a lot of success out of those guys. Josh Jacobs. It'll be fun to see. Especially, you can't stop talking about Brock Bowers. That guy's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how defense would be able to game plan for that, because obviously you'd have to stack the box against Genty, but then you also got to be worried about Brock Bowers, a tight end, hitting you vertically. They'll definitely give the Raiders a good shot to compete, and I feel like if the Raiders don't draft Genty in the draft, I think that would be a huge mistake. And I know a lot of people think, oh, well, running backs are easy to come by. It's a very deep running back class. We get a running back almost as good in the second round. That's a huge mistake. There's a lot of great running backs in this draft, but there's only one Ashton Genty, and there's a reason why he's generational, and the rest of the running backs are just good running backs. But there was some other players, Kaynen, who got contract extensions as well. You had a guy like Trey McBride from the Arizona Cardinals who resetted the tight end market at $76 million total. This is a guy who is a top 3 tight end in the NFL. He's only around 25, 26 years old, and he's improved each and every season. So it makes sense. He was the next guy up. Guys like, Travis Kelce are a little over the hump. Kittle is a guy who's already paid. So Trey McBride made sense to become the highest paid tight end. He deserved it. And I think he's only going to improve. And I think, him and Brock Bowers are the future in the NFL at that position. And it wouldn't surprise me if those 2 guys are the next generation of Kelce and Gronkowski, where there's just a 1A, 1B as the 2 top tight ends in the NFL for the next 5 years. But what are your thoughts, Kaynen, on Trey McBride getting this extension?
Yeah, I think I said this before. The tight end position is like a very underrated position. They're such valuable targets in the offense. It's good to have a guy that big that can get into space and just go up and get the ball. With Trey McBride, I like what the Cardinals are doing here. Like you said, he's very young, and I think it's very important to lock up your young talent so that you could develop them the way you see, like the potential you see in them. Whereas another team might utilize him for a different purpose and completely steer him off the track of his development. Where like whether it be like they make him a blocker or they feel like he's better doing this or that. So I think this was a good decision by the Cardinals. I mean, they have a lot of work to do, and I think this was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree, Kaynen. I think the offense is definitely one of their bright spots. I think obviously they could use maybe a couple more receivers to go along with Marvin Harrison Jr., their top pick last year, but he's a stud. He's going to be a top 10 number one receiver when he hits his prime. McBride's already in his prime as an elite tight end. I think when healthy, Kyler Murray is a really good quarterback. He just got to stay healthy, and he basically plays like a borderline top 10 quarterback when he is upright. They have some good running backs, so I like that. But yeah, if they could build that defense up, this is a Cardinals team that could really compete. And when Marvin Harrison Jr. hits his prime, that's going to be a tough offense to stop. Worrying about that receiving threat, but also that tight end threat. But Kaynen, there was a defensive player who got paid. And that's my Buffalo Bills team. Christian Benford gets a $76 million contract extension from the Buffalo Bills. He took less than market value. I think that was a tremendous deal what the Bills got. I love him as a player. But before I speak about this, Kaynen, what were your thoughts about this?
Yeah, like you said, this was a tremendous deal for the Bills. This is one of the weaker positions on the Bills roster. So to lock up a guy whose stats are comparable to the top corners of the league and get him at such a deal. I mean, he's coming in at just under $20 million a year. There's 13 guys who make the same or more than him, and he's arguably better than half of the people on that list. So this move just is tremendous, and I think the Bills will get their money's worth out of him this upcoming season. What do you think about your Bills here, Anthony?
Yeah, I love the trend. All their guys who basically have been getting paid so far have taken less than market value. Gregory Rousseau was supposed to be getting in the $28 million range, and he got barely 20. And you look at a guy like Calais Shakir, who was supposed to be getting 19. They were able to get him for around 15 or 16. So, and then you look at a guy like Christian Benford, his market value was around 23 million a year, and they were able to get him for 19 million a year. And that's including like everything, like incentives, if he's on the team throughout the whole entire contract. So there's a possibility where he could be making less than $19 million a year. And when you look at some of the contracts that other guys got out, and I do think, these guys are better, but you look at a guy like J.C. Horn, who got $25 million a year and over $90 million guaranteed. He got super paid. So and then you look at a guy like Derek Stingley, who got the $30 million range. Now, obviously, he's better than Christian Benford, but Christian Benford's price is way better than those guys. And like you said, Kaynen, some of those guys who actually are making more money than Christian Benford definitely aren't as good as him. And he was one of the best shutdown corners in on a position, like you said perfectly, probably the worst position on the Bills right now, corner. He's their best one. You got Tyron Johnson, who's one of the best nickel corners in football. Christian Benford's one of the best shutdown corners, but you have one of the worst starting corners on the opposite side. You had Elam and Douglas last year. Douglas played okay, but not great, and Elam was a complete bust. Now you traded away Elam. Douglas is still a free agent. You probably might not bring him back. You brought in Dane Jackson, who's a backup at this point, so you don't have another starting corner. So you definitely couldn't lose Christian Benford. Now, there's one added story to this, Kaynen. James Cook. James Cook is the one guy out of all the guys that the Bills had. The Bills had about 5 guys who were entering the last year of their contract this season. They all got paid except for James Cook. And the reason being is they all took less money than their market value. Now, James Cook's market value is 15, and that's what he wants. And he definitely deserves and has earned that $15 million. Outside of Josh Allen, he's been the second most impactful player on the Bills. In all the big games and all the big moments, he showed and played. So the Bills definitely need him. And I know running back is an easy position to fill, but Cook knows his value. But, when all of your other teammates are taking less money, including Josh Allen, who could have got over 60 and took 55, when all your other teammates are taking less than market value, and you're the one player that wants to get market value, obviously you deserve it, but it goes to show you why he hasn't got paid. And Brandon Beane, the GM for the Bills, has paid everybody else. James Cook has also put his house up for sale in Buffalo. So he's definitely showing Brandon Beane that, like, he's not going to, come down on his price. And, it's going to show you that, this contract negotiations might get messy as well and might carry on. Now, James Cook doesn't seem like the guy to me that's going to hold out this year or get fined. He seems like the type of guy that would probably just play out his contract this year. But, man, he's definitely upset. He definitely wants to get paid. And like I said, Kane, everybody else is taking less money. But I think the Bills are going to have to pay him, and I think he earns that $15 million. But what are your thoughts, Kane, on James Cook putting his house up for sale? Do you think the Bills have to pay him his $15 million per year?
Yeah, I mean, it like you said, second most impactful player on the Bills. We saw him show out in the playoffs last year and kind of carry him through a game. So it'd be hard not to pay a guy like that, especially one who hasn't been shown the love he deserves, I think. He stepped in a position where the Bills really needed someone to step up. So I think he's worth the 15. It is hard to give him that money when everyone else did take the cut, and it is kind of like, what the hell are you doing? Like, everyone else is in. What are you doing? I don't think he's going to be a part of the Bills next season due to the fact that he sold his house. I mean, I don't think you just do that to send a message. So it's unfortunate for the Bills, but there's a lot of running backs out there they could put in his place, and I feel like they could duplicate his production.
Yeah, running backs are a position that, is easy to fill. I mean, even a guy like Ray Davis, who they drafted last year, in the time that he played, he was very impactful as well. Now, I remember speaking to my dad about this yesterday, and my dad's old school. And, when a player, is not about being about the team, he immediately wants to get rid of them. And I was trying to explain to him, like, yes, I understand that. And, when you have all these other players on the team taking pay cuts, and like you said, Kid, and everybody else is buying in, what people got to, realize is James Cook plays a different position than those guys. James Cook plays a position in running back where no matter pretty much what you do, you're most likely not going to get a third contract. You're going to pretty much have to bank on that second contract. Where you look at a guy like Josh Allen or Khalil Shakir or Gregory Rousseau, the position they play allows them to play a little longer than running back. So after this contract's up, they're going to be looking at another contract. So yes, they can make less money on this contract, but they have another third contract to kind of pay him a lot longer period of a time. Where you look at a guy like James Cook, who wasn't a first-round draft pick, is a running back, he's not going to be getting that third contract. So he's got to maximize this second contract. So I think that's why it's a little different for him to take a pay cut and take less than everybody else. But there was some signings, Kaynen, and a player that I actually wanted my Bills to sign at a position they need defensive tackle. And that was Calais Campbell, who decided to go back to Arizona. He's going to be going back for his 18th season in the NFL. A future Hall of Famer, in my opinion, and in his prime was one of the best defensive players in the league. Played a large part of his career in Arizona, and then kind of has bounced back and forth on teams, but still in limited action as a guy who can make an impact. And I'm glad that he's going to be able to finish his career in Arizona, a team that I spoke about earlier, Kane, that can use defense, and he's going to go a long way to help that. And not a guy who could play every down given his age, but when he does play in limited action, he's a guy who can make an impact. But what are your thoughts about this, Kaynen?
Yeah, like you said, he's not going to play every down, but he's going to have a lot of impact. Being an older guy who was at the top of the game in his prime, he's going to have a lot of wisdom to impart on the younger guys. And they added Sweat and Tomlinson this season, and I think those are guys who can learn a lot from. I mean, they're already masters at the craft. They're probably top 5 in their position, but there's still room to learn, and what better from a guy like Calais Campbell. One thing I thought was funny was he spent 9 seasons with the Cardinals, and then they let him walk. The season after that, the Jags picked him up, and he finished second in Defensive Player of the Year. So this is kind of like a really cool comeback story for Campbell. Maybe both sides can kind of right their wrongs and make something happen this season.
Yeah, I agree, Kane. And I'm glad he goes out playing as an Arizona Cardinal, because there's not another team or another uniform I'd want to see Calais Campbell playing. And like we said before, this is a team that has offense. And I'm glad that you brought that up, Kane. They did bring in some other players like Sweat and others. who actually has played under the head coach, who was the former defensive coordinator in the Philadelphia Eagles. So as a scheme fit, it's going to be an easy transition for those guys as well. So this is a team, Kaynen, in a division that has some unknowns. You don't know about Seattle yet. I know they made some good moves, but you still got some unknowns. You don't know what you're going to get out of the 49ers. So, this is a team in Arizona where, if everything could just click and the players could stay healthy, maybe Calais Campbell can not only, go out on good terms with the Arizona Cardinals and retire as a Cardinal, but maybe also retire playing in the playoffs as well. The football forecast is presented by Playback. Watching sports is fun, but it's more fun with others. We spend way too much time watching it alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, from repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. Now back to the show. We had some rule changes, Kaynen. The NFL is making some changes. The NFL approved of some rule changes, and they put some rule changes on hold. So basically what they did is they moved the touchback, the kickoff touchback, from the 30 to the 35. So that's basically going to incentivize the kicking team to kick less touchbacks so you get more teams return the ball. Because now that you gain that extra 5 yards as a kicking team, you don't want to just automatically get them at the 35. That gets them a lot easier way to get a field goal position. With a game of inches, that extra 5 yards of going from the 30 to 35 is very impactful. So now what that's going to do is you're going to have more kick returns because the kickers now are going to kick it just short of the goal line. And what that's going to happen is you're going to get more kickoffs, and we're still going to have the new kickoff format that we had last year. With the new dynamic kickoffs, we had a lot more kick returns and a lot more actions. So now you're going to get that. You got less concussions, and now you're going to have more kick returns because of the touchback being moved up. I think this is great, and it makes the kickoffs and the special teams more excited. And that's something that the NFL has struggled with over the last few years of, the special teams being kind of, a dull part of the game where fans really aren't paying attention. They're grabbing a beer or going to the bathroom. Now you're going to have to pay attention. There was another rule change. So, obviously they changed the playoff overtime rules to where now, even if a team gets a touchdown, the other team will be able to possess the ball. In the regular season, that wasn't the case. Well, now it is. Now in the regular season as well, if you win the coin toss and score a touchdown, the other team gets an opportunity with the ball. The only thing is the overtime time limit does still stay at 10 minutes in the regular season while still being 15 minutes in the postseason. But I'm glad now that in the regular season, both teams will be able to possess the ball even if they score. I think that definitely makes it fair. And then finally, the tush push, who a lot of teams want to get out of the league, not only just for, competitive balance, but also for injury purposes. It definitely puts your offensive, defensive linemen at risk for injuries. Just for that, some NFL teams want it, removed. And I think it was 16 out of the 32, teams or owners approved of it and wanted to push, have it banned. But obviously they want to have some more time to think about it, and they're going to review it again. I think they said in May. So we'll have to wait on that decision. But what were your thoughts on these rule changes, Kaynen?
Yeah, with the touchbacks, I really like that. You have guys in the NFL that made special teams really cool to watch, like Devin Hester or whatnot. So, and Deion Sanders. So it's cool to see like they're trying to bring that back and get more returns in the game. And like you said, it's a game inches. I think that 5 yards is going to make a huge difference. I love the overtime rule change. There's no reason it should just go down to a coin toss. You know what I mean? So I like that a lot. And the most controversial one, I think, the tush push. We're gonna learn more about that decision in May, but I like the tush push. It's a gritty play, and I don't really think it needs to go anywhere. If it was unstoppable, everyone would do it, and everyone would have the success the Eagles would have, but everyone doesn't do it. And I agree with you for injury sake. If we're seeing more guys just head up for the tush push and come back injured, I think, yeah, I think we should get rid of it. But at this point, I don't think there's enough data to constitute getting rid of it right now. So maybe after a couple of years and we check the stats and we go, well, all these linemen got their knees blown out, or these defensive tackles, blah blah. And maybe I think you'd get rid of it. But for now, I think it should stay in the game.
Yeah, you said that absolutely perfect, Kane. From a competitive balance, I'm not worried about this at all. Like you said, if it was that unfair, every team could do it, but only some teams could do it because you have to have the right offensive line and you have to have the right quarterback. A la the Eagles, who have the dominant line, a strong quarterback like Jalen Hurts, or the Buffalo Bills, who got a big offensive line and a big physical quarterback like Josh Allen. You're not going to be able to do the tush push with a small, bad offensive line in Kyler Murray. It's not going to work like that. So you got to have the right personnel. But like you said, Kaynen, I think what they need to do is continue to allow the tush push and then just have some data over the next 3 years to see, how much injuries are you getting from this? And if they do, support that, it is causing a significant amount of injuries or concussions to, your quarterbacks or your offense or defensive linemen, then yes, ban it at that point. But right now, Kaynen, I think they're more focused on, banning it for, competitive balances. And, that's not a reason to ban it. I think keep it like that. Do some studies, like you said, over the next 3 years. And if they're causing injuries, then yes, ban it. But, when I see, the Bills play every single week, I follow the Eagles, they say injuries, but how many people have really been getting hurt from these tush pushes? I mean, people in general just get hurt a lot from playing football. So there hasn't been a lot of information or data to support that, like you said. So I agree, Kayden, they should keep it for now. And we shall see in May. The NFL, as we get closer to the regular season, NFL in Vegas released their over-under for the win totals this season. And there were some interesting ones, Kaynen. Obviously, we'll start off, there was 4 teams who all were tied with the highest with 11.5, and that's the Bills, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Ravens. And then obviously you had the Cleveland Browns, who were at the lowest at 4.5. Now, you got to keep in mind, a lot of these teams are going to lose less more than what they say or win more, but they kind of got to be conservative on this. We know there's going to be teams, obviously, that win more than 11 games and have teams that end up losing and having less than 4 wins. But the NFL, when they always release their totals, they're always going to have some sort of average, so you got to factor that in. But there was definitely some interesting ones in here, Kaynen. The 49ers, were pretty high on this list. I think actually the 49ers may have even been close to that 11.5 win total, or at 10.5. And I think, 11.5, even 10.5 is still, too high. I know their schedules are a little easier than what they've had in previous years, but with so many unknowns and so many players that they lost on defense and not knowing Christian McCaffrey's health, I think the 49ers win total, which I do think is at 11.5, is way too high. Washington, which is a conservative 10.5, with how great they played last year and with the additions they made with Deebo Samuel and others, I think the Commanders are definitely going to win 11 wins. So I would definitely right now take the over on the Commanders. You got the Chargers. They got the Chargers at a modest 9.5. I think that's a little too low. I think they'll definitely hit the 10-win mark. They can only improve. Jim Harbaugh always does much better in his second year. And there's no way their team is not going to be better than they were in their first year. So I like the over on that. The New England Patriots at 7.5, which was lower than the Miami Dolphins. I think that was a huge shock. I would definitely, bet the house on the over with that. With Mike Vrabel and the additions they made. I've been bragging about the New England Patriots every single weekend. I would almost guarantee, barring, a catastrophic injury to Drake May, that the New England Patriots have more than 7 wins. And I think they'll easily be closer to that 9-10 win mark than they will be to 7 or 8. And then finally, you had the 2 New York teams, the Jets and the Giants, at 5.5, who were getting no respect. And I mean, I guess rightfully so. You don't know what the Giants' future is going to be. At the quarterback position, obviously you got Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, but you don't know if they're going to be able to win with that. The Giants haven't been able to win, besides the 1 year where they did get to the playoffs recently. And the Jets, kind of going from Aaron Rodgers to Justin Fields, is definitely a downgrade. And that's a team who really didn't have, much around the quarterback position last season on offense. But what were your thoughts, Ken, on some of these over-under win totals?
Yeah, like you said, I think the 49ers are too high. Like there's just too many variables with them, too many injuries. Washington, I think that's an accurate number for them. They played unbelievable last season. And the Patriots, I think 7.5 is way too low. I agree with you. I think with all the Patriots are doing, they have a good pick this year. I think they're going to be a team that shocks a lot of people, and I don't know, maybe make push to the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Kaynen. And I'll ask you one thing. With the Giants win total, I know that's a team you do follow a little bit. The Giants win total being 5.5. Obviously, they're going to get a tremendous player at third, and it looks like it's not going to be a quarterback, most likely with the two quarterbacks they brought in. So you might be getting a Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. With the 5.5 win total, do you think they're going to be over or under that win total next season?
Oh, geez. I definitely I have high hopes for the Giants, but I think they're going to be under. I think it's just going to be another disappointing season, and I'm not really mad at that. If we get another good pick next year, then so be it. We'll get our quarterback then, I guess.
Yeah, and I know Arch Manning is a quarterback who's eligible for the draft next year, and I know the Mannings like to have 2 years of starting. So a lot of people aren't considering Arch Manning as an option for next year because he probably won't come in the draft. He'll probably decline it for a year, and then you'll see him in the 2027 draft. But if the Giants had the number one pick, that may entice him to basically follow in the footsteps of his uncle Eli Manning, and then you have another Manning in New York, and that would be a tremendous sight to see. But I mean, man, Keenan, if the Giants can't get over that win total of 5, obviously you can't have a half win, but if they can't win at least 6 games, I mean, you probably got to win 7 games at least. But if they don't win at least 6 games, there's no way Brian Daboll on that GM is coming back for another year. They're going to blow it all up. They're going to get rid of both those guys. I mean, honestly, I think they need to probably get at least 7 wins to probably save their job and at least show some improvement. I don't even think 6 wins would get it done. So, according to what you're saying, Kanan, I agree. I don't see them winning much games either, and they probably will be close. I mean, I probably think they probably will be 5 or 6 wins. They'll be right around that. I do think that over/under is right, but man, I think Brian Daboll is going to be in for a long season. He's probably going to go back to being an offensive coordinator after this season. But that's going to be it for this week for Football Forecast Offseason edition. Obviously, we're going to be breaking down more NFL draft positions next week, and we're going to be breaking down more breaking news. So definitely make sure to stay tuned, and definitely make sure you follow us on all social medias at TFB Forecast ETB. Also be making sure to follow the YouTube channel at youtube.com/EPD Network. Like I said before, we're very close to 1,000 subscribers, so we very much appreciate it. Also, make sure to check out the ETB Substack at etbnetwork.substack.com for all your other sports content. And like I said, we're starting new things each and every week. So definitely make sure to check us out. Listen to us however you listen to your podcast. And also the show is presented by Playback. So we'll catch you guys next week.